For that, Shahan. The audacious plundering and theft of public money at VBS has been described as the biggest heist in post-apartheid South Africa. 16 municipalities squandered 1.5 billion when they invested taxpayers' money in VBS Mutual Bank. Another 500 million in retail deposits from some 23,000 people. And they were all stolen from. 2 ANC officials have been implicated in the saga. Party officials in the province were meant to meet this evening, but that meeting has been postponed. Let's go over, though, to Samkela Masego, who was there waiting for that meeting to happen. What is bigger and more important than this for the ANC at the moment, Sam?
Well, Jane, I can't say what's bigger or more important for the ANC at this point in time. What we do know is that their meeting has been postponed to Sunday with the Premier of the province and the ANC provincial chairperson, Stanley Chupuma Tabata, having government engagements outside the province, and also the 2 women and men of the hour in the form of the fixer and the man who's been getting 2% of every deal he sealed in getting municipalities to invest into VBS, Denim Caesar, the money man of the ANC in the province, and also Florence Radzelani, the Christmas lady, the mayor of Vembe, who basically said that the 300,000 rand Christmas gift she was getting for having the Vembe district municipality deposits into VBS was little. She is also not available, so the meeting has been postponed to Sunday. But what we do know is that the ANC's top 6 officials, in the form of President Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC's other collective, may summon the Limpopo provincial top 5 to an urgent meeting on Monday after this damning report by Advocate Matlow and Waxman's attorneys, and also published by the South African Reserve Bank website, saying there was grand looting of 2.2 billion rands of South Africans' South Africans' monies, rather not taxpayers' money, and also the monies of the poor district people of the Vembe district municipality who sat outside VBS offices wanting their monies, and also the monies siphoned off municipalities who deposited into VBS, which has gone missing and siphoned and looted in this grand heist in post-apartheid South Africa of 2.2 billion rands.
Staggering. What happens next?
What we do know is that there is an investigation by the provincial government of Limpopo. We spoke to Putu Silabo, the provincial spokesperson, who said that they will be releasing their investigation of what happened to the monies that were deposited by municipalities. If any people need to be criminally charged, whether it be in the government sphere or even in the private sector, which includes the likes of Denim Caesar, who is said to be the fixer, and those who are government employees in the form of mayors such as Florence Radzelani, the NPA should prosecute them, and they should be wearing red overalls once these prosecutions are done, and they should be found guilty. So it looks as if there is a firm and hard stance that is being taken by the Limpopo provincial government on this grand theft of 2.2 billion rands.
All right. Samkela, thank you very much for that update from Polokwane. All right, I'm joined by Sanco's Chris Malametsa, insolvency expert, John Walker, and ENCA's Michael Apple to talk more about this. Michael, you've been walking around all day frowning with that report in your hand. Did it make for difficult reading?
Very difficult reading. It reads like a crime novel, and that would be fair and well if it wasn't so much of your and my and our money that we are looking at, all the zeros there. That makes for very sad reading. And of course, the other side of the coin here is that 500 million from retail depositors. These are the poorest of the poor, servicing the rural areas within the Limpopo province. These are people that have put their life savings into this, and that money is gone. Yes, 336 million of our rands will go to guarantee that, but it's a small drop in the ocean compared to what these people have lost. And it is harrowing to read this. And as you read through the report, you wonder how these people thought that they could get away with it. It was completely unsustainable, but it really lends itself to the culture of impunity and complicity with which those within the leadership of this bank and some within political circles worked.
Chris, I mean, I think that is the staggering thing, isn't it? How they thought that they could do this. And I suppose when it's working so well for you, you can just keep doing it, and everyone's in it.
You see, the problem is when people are power drunk. They think less. They be short-sighted. Whatever they do, they enjoy at that particular moment, not thinking that there will be tomorrow. When they are caught napping, it's then that they realize that everything which they were doing, they were chowing the people's coffin. Now they must find a way of hiding. They can't hide. If you check people who are involved there, high profile, those are the politicians, the king. How can the king steal from his own people? Business people, business entity. Therefore, with professional auditors and professional managers, how on earth they thought that a gift of 10 million cannot be seen? How on earth cannot be realized that as a mayor, you take the entire funds of the constituency, poor as it is in Limpopo, you decided to have 2% of everything that is going out. You think it's not going to be realized. People
it's
are very
real to hear it,
are
is it?
politically stupid, if we can put it that way.
I mean, John, I'm sure you come across some pretty horrific deeds committed by our fellow human beings, but this must take the cake.
Well, I must tell you honestly, this whole scenario is unique in my view, because when you normally have corporate fraud, the company steals from its creditors. But here, it seems that the creditors, or the controller of the creditors, which are the municipalities, worked in concert with the company to steal with the bank, to steal from the actual creditors, who are the people. Now, you're sitting in a situation where, and I remember from my prosecuting days, that we would have prosecuted this as a syndicated crime. In other words, part and parcel blame to everybody as joint wrongdoers. And obviously, in a syndicated type criminal investigation or in a syndicated type prosecution, the penalties are much stiffer than just a lone wolf acting on his own.
And Michael, you, several of the things that you were telling me a little bit earlier on, when I could see the shock on your face, was how these municipalities felt that they could get away with doing something so illegal. They're not even supposed to be going there.
Yeah, so I can speak from personal experience, having sat in the SCOPA meetings in the Northwest Province, where you have some of the most distressed, financially distressed municipalities. And I sat in a meeting with SCOPA where 4 of the municipalities, the municipal managers, CFOs, were called in to say, account, how on earth is it that you were in contravention of the Municipal Finance Management Act, handing over tens of millions of rands? There was about 330 million rand handed over by the Northwest municipality within the Northwest Province. And the answer lies, very simply, is people took bribes. People were paid. Finance, CFOs, municipal managers were paid. There was one municipal manager for Mahikeng who outright on camera in front of SCOPA said, we were paid too much money by COGTA. We asked them, why did you pay us too much money? Can we pay it back? There was a delay in the response from COGTA, so they just deposited it in VBS, trying to make a bit of money out of COGTA's money, which is our money. And then the chair of SCOPA said, do you know that you just admitted to fraud? Oh, so you have people that are highly qualified, one would hope, sitting in these decision-making bodies in government where our money is being spent, and they're saying, well, we weren't sure what the MFMA says about this, and SCOPA says absolute rubbish. And we now find that there is a commissions scheme. It was a brilliant idea that Danny Msiza, the treasurer within Limpopo ANC, that he, working with a politically connected fixer, would get 2% of every municipal deposit. That money would be paid to them. It would then filter down to municipal officials, mayors, CFOs, MMs, where they would then get their chunk of the pie. There is an interesting paragraph where it says one fixer in the municipality got $1 million, while the other got a can of Coke and was very upset.
Wow, understandable when all your colleagues are getting that amount of money. Let's go over to Zikhona Tona. She is in Limpopo, Tiondo, for the second time to find out what people are feeling now. What have you discovered?
Well, Jane, I'm hearing one of your guests saying there that the king, people don't believe that the king could steal from them. And that's exactly the sentiment that many people are feeling here, that they don't believe that the one person, the one leader who was supposed to protect them is among those listed in the saga surrounding this bank. I am outside the VBS branch in Sibasa. Now, this is the very branch where in July, when we visited, we saw people queuing in their numbers, desperate to access their money, many of them even sleeping overnight during the rain. The one morning when we arrived here, it was raining and people were here camping outside the bank. At the time, the Reserve Bank had set the limit for withdrawals at 1,000 Rand per depositor. So you can imagine many people have been saving with this bank for years. We spoke to a woman who was here. She and her society had saved an amount of 370,000 Rand. So you can imagine the number of trips that they had to do just to access their money. So people are angry. They want answers. I was speaking earlier on to one of the minority shareholders of this bank who's saying that they will have a meeting tomorrow and discuss a way forward. But what they've seen is that the list of people in that report are people that are known to this community. These are people that they say were rolling with the king, and they were living very lavish lives, and they didn't actually know where this money was coming from that was funding this life. So to their surprise, it was actually coming from their investments. So people want answers. Yeah. They are angry, and particularly at the king. They are saying that is the one person that should have protected them, and they cannot believe that he is even implicated in this saga.
You know, we did try to get hold of the royal family, of course, to get some sort of comment, but I suppose you can understand why they wouldn't want to talk to any of this. I'm just wondering, Zakona, where this leaves people now. I mean, what can they expect to get financially, and what sort of impact has it had on them emotionally?
So if you remember, the Reserve Bank has now moved all VBS depositors, individual depositors as well as societies, to Nedbank. So people have been able to access their money via Nedbank. The issue comes with businesses that have been investing with this bank. Now the Reserve Bank needs to recover the funds that have been withdrawn from this bank in order to be able to recover the funds that businesses have lost in this bank. So the big question now lies with businesses as well as those municipalities. As you know, municipalities were never in the first place allowed to invest in this bank. So people have been, for the large part, been able to access their money via Nedbank. But I think the big thing here is the trust that has been broken. This bank is the pride of this community. This is a bank that has been existing here for years. People have been investing in this bank, in societies, burial societies, and even families to build homes. This was a bank that was created with an intention of creating a culture among the Bavenda people of saving particularly to build homes and to take their children to school. I spoke to a woman when I was here in July who said this is a bank whose relationship was passed on from her mother. So her mother had been saving with the bank and had also been loaning money from the bank to take her children to school. So it's a generational thing. And you come here and you are able to converse with the tellers in your own language. So that kind of trust has been broken. So people really feel let down and they're really heartbroken because this is the only black bank that was existing in this country, and it was here. It was the pride of this community. And the minority shareholders were actually trying at the end of August trying to get money to save this bank. They were trying to see if they can get the community involved in trying to collect money from whoever can to try and save this bank. And they still believe that this bank can actually be brought back to its knees. So that's the sentiment here. People are angry, and they are angry particularly at their king. They are angry at the municipal leaders that have participated in this whole saga. And they're saying that the people that are listed there are people that know people that have been investing in this bank. So they feel let down because now they're saying that you knew that I was investing money in this bank, but at the same time you knew that you were involved in corruption in this bank. So people want answers, but at the same time they still have hope that this bank can be revived.
Wow. Okay, Zikona, thank you very much for that. We've got a call on the line from Secunda. Holisani, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think being somebody who comes from the community in Venda, VBS itself is not just a bank, it's part of our culture. As a professional myself, I think over the past 4 years, we discussed in many cycles how well we can be more supportive and become part of VBS. So we were starting to see it as the next slide that we should be supporting. So with what has happened now, if you look at it, it's not just the collapse of a bank. It's a complete shutdown of a broken relationship that has been there for generations and generations. We're now looking at our own Venda King being associated, and by the way, by his association, our grandmothers, our mothers, our community churches and other structures were in fact investing based on the level of trust that we had in the traditional leadership that also goes up to the municipal leadership. So this is quite a disappointment that across all these structures, you are seeing a direct association that for all these years, it was all but one big lie to feed certain people.
All right, Holisani, thank you very much for that. I mean, how do you advise people who are going through that sort of trauma, and what is your advice to them of what they can do?
No, I think what they must learn, the entire country, what we must learn, kings must never be trusted, because kings are not elected. There's this notion of kings are born as if they are permanent, whatever they are doing is unconstitutional. As of now, going forward, people must stop trusting the so-called kings, because every time and again we're supposed to go in, there's a traditional act that is going to deter us from acting against them. But to the people, one will say, those who are still having access to the money through the net bank, let them go there. Let not them over-stressed by whatever they're doing. They end up going there, maybe burn the king's house, end up taking the law into their own hands. But it is bad. Where I'm asking myself, how does these people, in particular the king, the politicians and the business, feels now when they see these poor people roaming around the street?
What makes it so horrific, doesn't it? I mean, you can't,
exactly.
You just can't get your head around it.
Exactly. Then how do they feel now after they've been driving around, if not any around with the helicopter, greeting their own people, at the meantime, chowing their own investment?
Yeah.
That was very wrong for them.
But extraordinarily, as our reporter was saying, people want it to be resuscitated or saved. Can it be? And should it be?
I must tell you honestly, having read that report, I seriously doubt it. I don't think the bank is going to be saved. What needs to happen now is that you need to liquidate this bank quickly. You need to act quickly. Because the proceeds, although it might have been transferred into a luxury car or a home or jewelry or what have you, it's still out there. And you need to grab it, and you need to grab it quickly. Failure to act quickly, you're going to end up hitting your face or your head against the wall, and you're not going to recover the money. You need to act now, quickly.
And Michael, the Reserve Bank, surely they should have picked up on this a lot earlier.
Well, that is the argument. A lot of people saying. There was an interview with advocate Terry Mattal, the author of the great bank heist, and that was the argument put to him. Why did the Reserve Bank not pick this up earlier? And this is where, and I'm not a financial expert, but this is where auditors come in. They look at the books, and you should be able to trust the auditors. Now, KPMG signed off on this, and the 2017 financial report for the bank was about R1 billion short, and it was signed off by a KPMG partner. And so he said that, Terry Mattal said that the South African Reserve Bank was blindsided by this KPMG partner. So, yes, what are you going to end up doing? Have an auditor auditing the auditors and so on.
But maybe that is the way forward, especially considering how widespread this is in the country.
Look, the function of an auditor is to be independent, so that he can check what the directors are doing and then report to the authorities, as into the shareholders, the Reserve Bank. In this case, if I read that report, and if that report is to be believed, this auditor was either grossly incompetent or complicit. There's only one of those two options. There isn't a third. So he was either didn't know what he was doing completely, and in which case I don't know how he elevated himself to the position he did in KPMG, Alternatively, he was complicit.
Well, I mean, that's
He did receive over 20 million rand for his troubles.
Yes, I'd say that's pretty complicit,
Yeah.
possibly. Let's bring in Judith from KZN. Go ahead, Judith. Hello, Judith. Right, we seem to have lost Judith there. So, okay, auditing, KPMG, you know, where to from here now for the bank? You say it's got to get its money back.
Yes, well, the function of a liquidator would obviously be to go and claw back whatever monies there are, and also to recover any claims which VBS might have against anybody, including the auditors. An auditor is supposed to be a professional person. They've got high standards at which they are measured to. And if they breach those standards, then theoretically you can sue them for professional negligence and recover damages. Now, if it is true that the Reserve Bank could have taken steps much earlier had they known the true state of affairs, which they would have had the auditor done his job properly, we might be looking at several hundred million rands worth of damages against a firm like KPMG.
But also, you know, alarm bells should have been going off with the municipalities getting involved at that level. I mean, what was the discussions where you were? I mean, was this sort of thing known? I mean, how could that have been justified?
No, I think let's start with the KMPD. That is, they were cooperating. They were cooperating to benefit. Who on South African can ever still trust them? So you must just know that they were cooperating because they were benefiting.
Well, they tainted before. I mean, it's
exactly. So coming to the municipalities is an easy thing. These people were using that as an ETM to benefit themselves. They will take the constituents' money into that bank and get the interest. That is how it was operating. So people were not necessarily getting unqualified report. They were getting unqualified report. But the interest of the money that was invested there was going exactly to the pockets of those invested there. So it was just a scam. But what they've done, they must know that history will judge them harshly. This is a traditional thing that we were supposed to build on. This was like a new baby born, which was trying to crawl against the ever being there white monopoly capital. It was meant exactly to destroy them.
I mean, in a way that makes it worse, doesn't it? I mean, this was the first black bank, a real sign of progress in the country.
Exactly. Now somebody came here, because it's power drunk, decided to go and destroy it completely.
What are you going to say?
And you know, the rules are there. I mean, you had the one municipality where the financial lady just simply refused to authorize the payment to VBS Bank. And the same was, according to the report, in PRASA. So now, they wanted a further billion from PRASA. Now, can you imagine where we would have been 3 or 4 months down the road if PRASA had placed their billion rand in there as well? Now, those two ladies, in my view, deserve a medal because they stood up to incredible pressure and simply refused.
And that must have been incredible pressure, right? Because if you look at the business plan, I'm not sure what the business plan was, how they thought they'd make money for anybody other than themselves. But when you are handing over something like 20 million to KPMG, I think it was possibly more than that, was it?
Yeah.
But how did they think they were going to make it back?
Well, I don't think they realistically thought that they were going to pay it back. I think, reading that the methodology they adopted was to keep rolling, see how much they can siphon off from it, because remember, between them and the actual creditor is the municipality. So it would take a lot of red tape to get to the actual perpetrator of the fraud. And I think they never intended to pay it back at all. I think they just wanted to loot as much as they can and probably disappear with it.
So, I mean, what was it? They all sit around a table one night and go, this is a great idea. Let's steal from our people, and this is the way we're going to do it.
The intention is to get rich. And remember, in such scenario, if you want to get rich, you don't care who becomes poor and poorer.
No.
So as long as your account will grow richer and richer, is where you enjoy. So that at the end of the day, when you leave the office, you are able to live a lavish life that you want to live in this country.
I'm going to stop you there for a minute. We've got a caller. We've got Judith back from KZN. Go ahead, Judith.
Hi, Jane. Thank you for a wonderful show. I just wanted to say that this is a very sad day for South Africa, Jane. And we, as the voters of this country, should punish the ANC next year at the election. We should punish them for being so arrogant, for allowing their senior people felt a sense of entitlement to other people's money, Jane. Not only the ANC, the EFF as well, because there's no smoke without a fire. Thank you, Jane. Bye.
Thank you, Judith. Well, it seems that I think not just the ANC needs to be punished here. Let's listen to those allegations made against members from the EFF and the response by the party.
If you come to the EFF and say there is this receipt that you received money, we will cooperate with you. Anybody. It's we're a registered party. As a registered party, we have to conform with the laws of the country like any other party. We're not just a spaza shop. So there are regulations that our books get audited every quarter. Parliament has to audit our books because they also give us money. So through that, the people of South Africa audit our books. Yeah.
So just to wrap up what you're saying, basically nothing is going to be done. Shivamba will continue doing what he does. There will be no investigation, no suspension until what?
Until, must I say it for the third time? If you or anybody comes with information, it will be investigated. What's so difficult about that?
Michael, when you were going through the report, were you aware of who was on the receiving end? The amounts that was handed over?
No. I don't think anybody could have thought about the quantums involved here. Between 2015 and 2018, Vele and Associates made over 930 million rand. That's close to R1 billion. The King, 17.7 million rand. Brian Shivambu, 16.148 million rand. And I've been looking at the names and looking at the companies and the figures, and it's 14, 14, 14, 2 million, 2 million, 4 million, and trying to see which companies they work for that could in any way link them to this bank, why they should foreseeably be getting payouts. And that is a very difficult process. I'll tell you because, as the report says, a lot of shell companies were set up as a buffer between the bank and the ultimate payout. So somebody would be paid for services rendered, and then the money would just be passed on, and it was simply because they were friends, connections, family of Vele or VBS executives. They were given mortgages, vehicle finance, massive overdrafts that are never repaid. So the overdraft just gets extended, and the advocate makes an interesting observation. He says that little, if any, repayments on any loans were ever seen. So it was given with the understanding that you don't need to pay this back. Interesting, he was asked the 7.8 million rand given to Jacob Zuma to repay the Nkandla money. Did he look at that specifically? He said that fell outside of the scope of his mandate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly seems to have been well planned, wasn't it? We've got a VBS investor, sorry, Bruce, on the line from Thohoyandou. Go ahead, tell us what happened.
Thank you. I am an investor with Vendor Building Society, and I feel so depressed. What I would like to see happen is that all people who have stolen our money should be arrested. If we are all equal before the law, politicians and the king should be the first to be arrested. That will set a good example that wrongdoers eventually get punished. We have been observing that politicians who do wrong go out scot-free. They don't get punished, but I think if we are serious about fighting corruption, then this is the time to convince us as citizens that there is willingness to punish wrongdoers. Thank you very much. Tomorrow, I'll be going to visit the mayor's office here in Thohoyandou to ask for Christmas. Thank you.
And that was the term used, wasn't it? The Christmas was give me something, a little bit more. So Bruce, I mean, he's in relatively good spirits considering what's possibly happened to him. What sort of recourse is there now for the investor? I mean, where do they go, and are we any good at arresting people in the corporate world, in the corporate space?
Well, it depends. The problem with the justice system is it takes really long. You know, the wheels grind slowly. But this case is just so clear-cut. I mean, it's a long time since I've seen a case that was this clear-cut. I think there should be a prosecution very quickly. And, you know, to qualify earlier, my colleague next to me said, you know, they just carried on, and perhaps this was part of what they thought, that they had some sort of immunity to an effective prosecution. And this report, I must hand it to Advocate Matau. I mean, it was meticulous. Him and his interrogator and his investigators meticulously broke down this scheme in little bite-sized chunks that you can very easily prosecute. And I think it should happen quite quickly. I think that's on the criminal side. On the civil side, we must freeze their assets. Because if you wait a year, there's going to be nothing left to freeze.
All right, get on it. And what lessons learnt from this? And where do you think this leaves us, our heart and soul?
You see, at some stage you find yourself not knowing exactly what to do, because we're under public broadcast. I have to play it this way. Imagine a situation where the king bought 2 cars, same model, same everything, for himself. The lesson that we have learned that there are people who are not good in handling the money. The lesson that we have further learned, there are people who are occupying high position in this land who are not trustworthy. The other lesson that we must really emphasize is to tell the truth. Dalim Mpofu is a lawyer. He knows exactly what the lad want to get from the question. What must happen is to lead by example. Floyd Shibambu must be suspended, must be away from the public eye. Malema Njebu, the king's investment, he must go then declare that I got so much money. Billion, as you said. Then why should we be messaging these things? These people must be brought to the book. I agree. We are in this country. We are having a democratic dispensation that can allow the president to fast-track whatever that is an outcry. Why can't the president intervene into this and ensure that I want to see justice? We are not talking about criminal that they maybe stole a car. We are talking about people who stole the people's money. Can we set up example that those who are there, we stop this rhetoric? Heads must roll. Heads must rot in jail. The heads must roll to rot in jail and nothing else.
Let's leave it there. Chris, John, and Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For talking with us through that. Next, we talk to a psychologist about the emotional impact of losing your money.